Welcome to the Spiritist Companion Podcast. My name is Yuri Castro, and I'll be your companion on this journey where we study, reflect, and put the teachings of Spiritism into practice. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and join us every Monday for new episodes. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the soul's most essential virtue, charity. What does charity really mean according to Spiritism? Is it only about giving material help? And why did the spirits say that outside charity there is no salvation? Let's reflect together. And let's begin with a message from the Apostle Paul written in the Gospel according to Spiritism, where he says that the true Spiritist and the true Christian are one and the same, given that all those who practice charity are the disciples of Jesus without putting any embargo on whatever sect they may belong to. Here we see that the apostle is talking about how charity is this thing that unites us, is this virtue that really speaks to our heart and really speaks to our Christian tendencies, irrespective of the sect that we belong to. Jesus himself did not establish any particular religion. His religion was love, and we can find this religion being practiced all around the globe, irrespective of the denomination. We also learn from Kardec that charity is within the reach of everybody, from the ignorant to the wise person, from rich to poor people. It is also quite independent of any particular beliefs. So he's also talking about how everyone can practice charity, how everyone can develop this virtue that is so important for the progress of not only the society but also of ourselves. But what is charity exactly? In everyday language, charity is often associated with donations, with helping those in need, the poor, or volunteering. And while those are important aspects of our life and society, Spiritism invites us to go deeper, to look at things from a different perspective, that one that goes beyond the material aspect. In this Spirit's book, Allan Kardec asks, what is the true meaning of the word charity as Jesus understood it? Which is a great question. So Kardec is trying to dive deeper into the meaning of the word, but not as we see it with our very flawed and materialistic eyes. But what did Jesus mean when he talked about charity? And the spirits are going to say benevolence toward all, indulgence toward the imperfections of others, and forgiveness of offenses. This is incredible because we're talking about benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness of offenses, and all those things are very, very hard, but they're also extremely important. And if we think about it, we're going to see that benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness, they often go unnoticed. They're often the invisible helpers that we get along the way. Therefore, charity, my dear friends, is not just doing something external, something that sees to the material needs of someone else. It is an internal disposition. It's the way we think, the way we feel, the way we act, and the way we respond to others, especially when it's hard. Because as we've talked about in a different episode of this podcast, the episode on forgiveness, forgiving is very, very hard. Being benevolent and indulgent may actually seem simple, but they're also very hard. Charity, therefore, is patience when you're irritated. It's understanding when you're offended. It's kindness when no one sees it. How do we behave when no one is looking at us? How do we behave when we know we're not going to get the applause for a charitable act? Do we still do it? And perhaps what is a central phrase of the gospel according to Spiritism is the one that says, outside charity, there's no salvation. Kardec writes, without charity, there is no moral foundation. Faith can be shaken, knowledge can be misused, but charity, the law of love, is eternal. So he's talking about how charity is this thing that remains, this thing that does not lose its value, does not become broken. Why? Because charity is the living expression of love in action. It's the foundation of spiritual progress. It's the foundation that will lead us away from selfish tendencies and from prideful ways. The spirits go even further and they tell him that all virtues lead to charity. Without it, there is no true virtue. So it's important to note that when the spirits say there is no salvation, they don't mean eternal punishment or salvation from the eternal punishment. Spiritism rejects that idea, as we've seen on chapter 2 of this podcast. What they actually mean is that without charity, meaning without exercising the virtue of charity, the soul cannot truly evolve in a good pace. It remains tied to pride, to selfishness, to lower vibration, and all those things that just hamper our progress. The spiritual benefactor Emmanuel, who wrote through the hands of Chico Xavier, he talked a lot about charity. He says that charity is the supreme synthesis of the teachings of Jesus. Look at that, the supreme synthesis. So if we want to synthesize, we're going to go back to the word charity. He says too that it is the divine light of the heart that knows how to love in silence, suffer with dignity, and serve without asking. So that is the sublime message. That is what charity is all about. He reminds us that charity is not always visible. Sometimes it's in the silent prayer that we make for someone who hurt us, or in the decision to stay calm in the face of injustice. Remember what we talked about? Benevolence, indulgence, forgiveness, all comes together. And in the book Living Spring, also by Emmanuel through the hands of Chico Xavier, he's going to say that those who practice charity should have compassion on hardened souls, benefiting them with the vibrations of prayers. He's already giving us a very practical way to help someone else to exercise charity that does not depend on any material possession. He also says that charity is sublime in every aspect. Under no circumstances should we forget the wonderful selflessness of those who distribute bread and clothing, medicine and assistance for the body, learning solidarity and teaching it. So he's not saying that we should forget that. We must point out the fact that wealth and authority are temporary possessions that we keep on our journey, and that in the essential foundations of life, they do not belong to us. And they don't. These are all temporary things that we have at our disposal to use as instruments. So the wealth and authority, whenever they are present, they are but instruments that we have at our disposal to practice the virtues, including the virtue of charity. Emmanuel says that giving what we have is different than giving from what we keep. Whenever we're exercising charity with the true intentions of a sincere heart, we're giving what we have because we already have that, instead of giving something that we're keeping temporarily, such as authority or wealth. Acquiring this discernment of these two things that Emmanuel talked about, what we have versus what we keep, goes hand in hand with something else that Joanna de Angelis, who wrote through the hands of Divaldo Franco, says. She links charity to psychological growth. So she talks about how charity is the most effective therapy for the soul because it dissolves resentment, opens the heart, and connects the spirit to divine harmony. Joanna explains that those who practice charity heal themselves in the process. Because when we shift focus from ourselves to others, We allow love to circulate. We become instruments of peace. Whenever we are exercising, therefore, charity, we are instruments of peace. We allow love to germinate, to blossom, to circulate. We move away from pride and selfishness, the two scourges of our moral development. Therefore, it is a sign of psychological growth. Charity is a sign of psychological maturity as well. And if we widen our view, we can even think of charity and reincarnation and the law of cause and effect, because we see that charity can play a vital role in reincarnation and spiritual healing in the progress of the soul. Because when we practice charity, we're not just helping someone else, we're not just helping society, we're also helping ourselves by repairing past mistakes. We are sowing seeds that will one day return to us in the form of peace, support, and light. In the Spirit's book, Kardec asks the spirits, what is the greatest virtue one can practice on earth? And they reply that all virtues are valuable, which is interesting, but charity is the greatest because it includes selflessness, compassion, and the will to do good. So the spirits are emphasizing how charity is so important for us in our lives and in the lives of the society that we live in. But somebody may ask, how can I practice charity daily if it's not just giving out material possessions? Well, there's a couple of things that we can do. So let's now reflect on how we can live this virtue even in the small moments. Number one, through our thoughts. So guarding ourselves against harsh judgment, sending kind thoughts to those who struggle, sending a prayer of love to those who really need to heal the soul. Number two, we can do through words. So we can speak gently to ourselves and to others. We can encourage, we can lift others up. So through our words, we can also practice charity. And number three, through our actions, helping whenever we can, but also being present, listening, being patient. Remember? Benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness. Kardec reminds us that the intention behind the act give it its value. So even the smallest gesture, if done with love, has great spiritual weight. It has a true impact, and one that I dare say we may never truly know how big they may be. Our dear friend and master Jesus taught a lot through parables as well, and one that exemplifies charity is the one of the Good Samaritan. It makes us think about those two that passed along beforehand and had the means to help that person. But the Samaritan was the one who went out of his way to exercise charity, to exercise the virtue. Jesus also said, and this is in the Gospel of Luke, but give what you have to the poor. And Emmanuel comes and helps us understand this verse by saying, give alms from your inner life, assist personally, spread joy and courage, opportunity for growth and edification amongst others, and be dedicated brothers and sisters to your neighbors. For in truth, love that is given amid blessings of happiness and work, peace and trust is always the best gift of all. Therefore, my friends, charity is the light of the soul. It's more than what we give, it's what we radiate. In a world that often feels cold and different, being charitable means becoming a source of warmth and light. It's about being the good soil where the seed of compassion can grow. So let's ask ourselves, where can I be more charitable today? What thought, word, or action can bring someone hope? The answer to these questions may be the beginning of your soul's next chapter. We've reached the end, and I wanted to thank you so much for joining me today in this reflection on charity. If this episode touched your heart, please consider sharing it with someone and being a messenger of kindness in their day. Until next Monday, stay kind, serve with love, and walk in the light of charity. With fraternal love, your Spiritist companion.